My wife and I ran an Airbnb rental for years to the point that it was routine. Our house appeared to be the ideal place to take advantage of the travel craze given its location in a busy tourist destination. The thrill of it all eventually wore off, like the walls of an old haunted mansion creaking under the weight of time as bookings increased and demand increased. It was exciting when we first got the property, but now it was more of a nuisance, but honestly, it did pay for itself. We had grown accustomed to the pattern, a flurry of texts upon guests' arrival, the fast cleaning service between checkout and check-in, and the never-ending back and forth of messages and questions. The majority of the time, the visitors were still faceless strangers, and you never really know someone because most of the business was automated at this point. Then came that fateful night. It began with a harmless text from a young man staying at the house. It was a couple renting out the place for 2 nights. He reported a water issue, a simple inconvenience, or so I thought. He said that the water in the house was not working. I agreed to visit the property because if there was also any water damage, it can get really expensive to fix. When I got there, I noticed that there were 2 cars. It was a couple renting the place. Had they come separately and agreed to meet up? Why would a young couple on a brief vacation need 2 cars? At the time, it was just weird, but also, though it is not allowed, a lot of guests do sometimes bring friends and family over, even when they are not supposed to. The thought left as fast as it came. The front door was open, so I walked in and announced that I was here and went straight to the basement to inspect the water problem. No one was there to greet me as I walked in. I was seriously confused, but I was tired and it was late. Walking down, I expected to find the basement flooded or some sort of water damage, but there was nothing. So I went to check the main water valve. One look at the valve and I knew it was intentionally shut off. Now I was suspicious of where the guest was and why the front door was open. A little late, I know. Were they intentionally saying there was an issue to get me to come over, or is there something else that was wrong? About another 3 minutes of just standing there thinking, I hear 3 sets of footsteps quickly running down the basement stairs. I turn around to face 3 hooded men and the panic begins to set in. I have made a grave mistake. Stammering to get out some words, I say the first thing that comes to mind. The water has been fixed and should be up and running now. I'm sure I was trembling at this point because these 3 did not look anything like I had expected. They remained silent, their eyes just watching me, and nothing was said for a good 10 seconds, which felt like an eternity. Then one of them goes, "Oh, okay. That's all we needed for tonight. Thanks." I shuffle past them, trying not to make eye contact. As I walk past the 3rd guy, I see an unnatural bump on his lower back. Looking back, it was probably a gun, but I was not sticking around to find out. They didn't follow me. They just let me pass. I got to the top of the basement stairs and something was off. I realized that one of the vases I had on a small table over in the corner was missing. Next thing I know, I hear one of them whisper, "Change your mind?" I ran to my car, started it, and drove off. Adrenaline pumping, I called the cops to let them know that the people renting out my place were not who we thought them to be and what had just happened. About 30 minutes later, I get a call back from the officer asking for the code to get into the place. And there appears to be no one here as there are no cars. He hangs up and says he will call me back after he inspects further. 20 minutes later, I got a call back and there was indeed no one there. I went to inspect the place with my wife in the afternoon, and this time I bring a couple of friends with me, only to find that they had taken some expensive decorations and a few other items like appliances. To this day, I wonder why they changed their mind. Why did they lure me into a trap just to let me go? The card they had used was later found to be stolen. That was the last time I was ever going to rent out an Airbnb. I had rented out an Airbnb in Georgia for just 3 days. Didn't bother to look too much into the place. All I knew was that it was in a rural part of town. All the other places had required you to book 2 days in advance, so this was the first option I had seen. It was a single-story wooden house, sitting on top of a hill with a nice little pond out front. I drove in, parked my car, and began moving my stuff into the house. The place was extremely nice, looked like something out of a movie. I took a shower, changed, and then went to the kitchen to make some dinner. Nothing fancy, literally just some beer and frozen sausages because I was too lazy to make a real meal. Turned on the TV, and before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. I woke up because I had heard a loud bang. It sounded like it came from the front of the house, so I went to check it out. Looking through the small glass opening, I couldn't see anything or anyone. I opened the door and set up my wireless computer camera under the overhang on the porch. Just to make sure, I went to every window and door to make sure it was all locked. I stayed up for a little longer before eventually heading off to sleep. Woke up in the morning and decided it would be a good idea to investigate. As I walked a little bit further out on the edge of the surrounding forest, I saw a trail of blood leading deeper into the woods. I followed it to find the corpse of a deer. I was relieved to have found it, as this is probably what caused the noise I had heard the night before. Clearly someone had shot it, but it was also missing its head. I turned back to the house and took off my shoes by the front door. I was spooked out, so I wanted to take a shower to calm down, and decided to go to the living room to watch some TV. As soon as I opened the bedroom door, I noticed mud footprints on the floor. I knew I took off my shoes earlier, so these footprints were not mine, and more importantly, they were not there when I had walked in. I realized that when I took my shoes off, I forgot to lock the front door. I quickly locked the bedroom door and called the police. I was on the phone with dispatch while I was booting up my laptop. I checked the wireless camera feed. It showed someone walking in, but not someone walking out. The police eventually showed up, and the Airbnb host was sitting on the couch. She had left home after having a fight with her husband. Clearly, this was violating the policies of the Airbnb agreement. Later, I found that she had a manic fit as she was not taking her antipsychotic meds. The police found the deer and its missing head. There was a gun and a bloody knife in her possession, so it is safe to say she was not doing anything good that night. I moved into a hotel the same day, and I no longer rent Airbnbs.